Hey everybody, it's Joe Jonas hanging with Jag.
Hi, this is Carly Rae Jepsen, and you're listening to Jag.
Ryan Seacrest with Jag.
It's B.O.B. So much swag with my homie Jag.
And now, a look at this week in podcasting news. It's the Jag Show podcast.
Welcome in, I am John Gay. Are celebrities ruining podcasting? Well, the great Tom Webster says no. In fact, celebrities and their social media followings are going to help get eyes and ears on the podcasting industry. But the proverbial cream will rise to the top, and only well-executed podcasts are going to stick around. Now, celebrities have long failed at hosting TV shows, and I would add to Tom's point, hosting radio shows. It's nice to get people's attention, but in the end, good content is going to win out. There's a link to Tom Webster's piece on this from Friday in today's show notes. There's a long-standing tradition in the news, politics, and business worlds known as the Friday news dump. When there's negative information to release about yourself, conventional wisdom is to do it on a Friday afternoon and evening when nobody's paying attention. Well, Apple must have had some news types in their PR department because they finally acknowledged the issues around the Apple Podcast rollout. And what they did, they blasted out an email to all their podcast creators at 5:31 Eastern Time, Friday afternoon, at the start of a long weekend. Now, naturally, it starts off positive regarding the announcement of subscriptions and channels. I want to read this to you. We've been delighted by the response, and it's exciting to see the hundreds of new submissions each day. Then they admit they're pushing the launch of the podcast back to June. Well, when exactly, we don't know, and they kept it nice and vague because this email came out on May 28th. And of course, they soft-pedaled the tons of issues that the users have been having. This is what they said. Over the last few weeks, some creators have experienced delays in the availability of their content and access to Apple Podcast Connect. We've addressed these disruptions and encourage creators experiencing any issues to contact us. There's a link. We've also heard from listeners and made adjustments based on their feedback with iOS 14.6, which was released on Monday. We'll introduce additional enhancements to the podcast library in coming weeks. Thank you for your understanding. We can't wait to see your new subscriptions and channels, and we're looking forward to launching them to listeners around the world soon. Best regards, the Apple Podcast team. Now, it's an archaic stock response like this that makes me wonder about Apple's long-term future in podcasting. Apple, as you well know, used to be regarded as one of the most forward-thinking, dynamic companies on the planet. And now it seems they're trying to tread water as the podcast leader, while Spotify and others are investing heavily both in the space and in the user experience. Maybe podcasts just aren't a priority for Apple. Pod News reported last week that Apple now makes more revenue from their App Store than the entire music industry is earning from music in 2021. Think about that for a second. In other podcasting news, we are getting closer to Podcast Movement, the world's biggest and best, if you ask me, podcast convention. It's August 3rd through 6th in Nashville, Tennessee. Organizers have revealed more details over the last week. Those attending in person will have access to 20 bars and restaurants on site, a water park, and more. And those attending virtually can do so via the Swap Card app, which Podcast Movement 2020 Virtual used last year. Again, I am not compensated or endorsed by Podcast Movement, but if you want to make a ton of connections and learn a ton about podcasting, for my money, it is the absolute best podcast convention out there, and actually what helped me get my business started. I'll link to all this information from Podcast Movement in today's show notes or at podcastmovement.com. Podchaser has upgraded its interface. It's looking to become the IMDb of podcasting. I actually created a profile for myself. It lists every show that I've hosted, produced, edited, even guested on. And you can see how it looks with the link in today's show notes to my Podchaser profile. If you're looking to get donations from your podcast listeners, you don't want to go the Patreon route, you can use the Stripe platform now without a website. And finally, if you're watching this podcast on video, you'll see I'm wearing my hometown Boston Bruins throwback Cam Neely jersey, which was a birthday present last year. It was so nice to watch a hockey game with a full crowd and hear them go nuts every time the Bruins scored. I don't care what sport and what team you root for. It's nice to be getting back to some semblance of normal. If you haven't already, go get the shot. Until next week, stay healthy and stay safe. Later.
If you like what you just heard, share The Jag Show with someone else who's interested in podcasts. You can also follow The Jag Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Visit jagindetroit.com.